Today we're going to make this super cute fall pumpkin and sunflower door swag. Welcome to Stillwater's Wreath Designs. Come on in. Hello Stillwater's fans. How are you today? Come on in. If you are new to the Stillwater's channel, welcome. We're so happy to have you. Stillwater's is all about front door decor, so we make a lot of wreaths and door swags here. New tutorials upload every single week. So I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and join us. And for all of my Stillwater's friends that have been with me for a while, I'm so glad you're back. So friends, we're going to make a door swag today, and we're going to build that on a burlap colored pine teardrop base. If you'd like to recreate this, I will leave a full supplies and materials list for you below in the description of this video. And as always, if you really enjoy this door swag, but you don't necessarily want to recreate it, I will leave a link to purchase this beauty directly below. All right, guys, so we're going to build this on a 24-inch pine teardrop swag base. And if you've never ordered them, this is what they come to you looking like. They're pretty worse for the wear. Shipping is not kind to them, so they are flat as a fritter and need lots of love and attention. But basically a teardrop swag is kind of like a mini Christmas tree. It's just upside down. And so when you get this, you've got to take these ties, we call these pine ties, and get them spread out. And so you're just going to equally disperse these ties between the two sides here. So I'm just quickly spreading out these pine ties so that we've got basically the same number of ties on either side. And then as you can see here, hopefully the camera has this in view, it's wider at the top and narrows down. And then at the widest portion, which is the top, you'll also see a round hook. This is so that you and your customer can hang this from your door. I always, just for good measure, just flip that guy over and make sure that that is really secure and twisted on tightly. And once you've split those pine ties up so that you've nearly got an equal amount on both sides, you're just going to fluff this guy up. So basically your base should look something like this. And as you can see, it's three-dimensional. However, we want to leave that back side flat and unfluffed, because this is the side that you or your customers will have resting up against your door. So once you've got your pine base fluffed out, go ahead and set this off to the side, and we're going to grab our Deco mesh. For this particular door swag, we are going to use two different colors of 10-inch Deco mesh, a solid black and a solid tan or burlap. So to start out, we're just going to cut 7 pieces of the tan and 7 pieces of the black. It's quite possible we'll need to cut a few more pieces. I just don't want to overcut. And so we're going to cut our pieces at 20 inches in length. And so using your rotary cutter and self-healing mat, which, by the way, friends, if you're new to wreath making and you don't yet have a rotary cutter, I definitely recommend that this is one of the first tool purchases that you grab for your home wreath making. It basically works like a mini pizza cutter, and it lets you cut your Deco mesh quickly with nice clean lines. If you don't have the rotary cutter and self-healing mat, just grab your tape measure and a good pair of scissors. And so we're just going to measure out 20-inch cuts of both the black and the tan. And we're going to start out with just 7 pieces of each. So go ahead and cut your Deco mesh, and I'll meet you back here. All right, now that we've got our Deco mesh pieces cut, it's time to start adding them into our base. And basically what we're going to do, we're going to create cruffles, and I'll show you what I mean by that in just a moment. We'll start at the top on one side and work our way all the way down to the tip, and then come back up the other side. So to make a cruffle, you're going to grab a piece of Deco mesh, and if you're new to Deco Mesh, friends, it loves to fray. And so the Woodland Ruffle or cruffle is a great way to prevent the fray. So what you're going to do is lay your Deco Mesh piece down in your work area, curl side up. You're going to take each end, you can use a chip clip or a clothespin if this helps you to hold your ends together here, and you're going to fold them under 1 or 2 times like so, which basically helps prevent that fray because you've tucked that raw edge away, giving it little exposure. And then you're just going to scrunch and gather that mesh in the middle until your hands meet, and then you've created a cruffle or a woodland ruffle. And so a cruffle just means you have a curl on each end and a ruffle in the middle. Once you've got that first cruffle made, come on over to your swag base, and we're going to start at the top, and you're just going to nestle that down in, and then finding 2 neighboring pine ties, give those ties a couple of tight twists to hold your cruffle in, and we've just added our first cruffle. I'm going to alternate back and forth between the colors. So now I'm going to grab a piece of my black, I'll lay it down in my workstation, curl side up. I'm going to roll each end under a couple of times to tuck away that raw edge, and then scrunch and gather in the middle. Then I'll hold that with my hand, come over to my base, and right underneath the previous cruffle we added in, I'm going to take this black cruffle, place it down to the base, find 2 neighboring pine ties, and give them a couple of tight twists, just like that. So go ahead and repeat this process all the way down to the tip, and then coming all the way back up on the other side. You may find that you need to cut a few more pieces of Deco Mesh. That's totally fine. And I'll meet you back here. So now we have all of our cruffles stuffed into our pine base, and just look how full that is coming together, guys. Ironically, I had cut 7 pieces of each of the colors, giving me 14 cuts, and that's exactly how many I used. There's no perfect number, friends. It depends on how big your pine base is and how closely you put them together. But at any rate, you should have a nice full base that looks just like this. Now, the bottom piece, remember I told you it looks like a mini Christmas tree. You're going to have this single pine tie sticking out. I just fold that guy in half and kind of give it a little twist to get it tucked out of the way, because I don't want that long dangly piece there. And the next step we're going to do is to add our focal piece, which is this approximately 8-inch in diameter cloth pumpkin. You can also use those plastic pumpkins. Honestly, that might be better because they're more lightweight, but this is what I have on hand, so this is what we're going to use. I grabbed this from Hobby Lobby, but you can grab them from nearly any craft reseller. And this is going to be our focal point, friends. And so I want this guy basically nestled, not necessarily directly in the center, but maybe just a tad above. So the center and then up an inch or 2. And so to get him added in, I'm going to take these pine ties that are left over and just kind of push them out of the way. And so it's going to be nestled just like this. And I'm going to anchor it down a couple of different ways. If you are using a plastic pumpkin, you would skip this step, but if you're using a fabric pumpkin like I am, I'm going to use a heavier gauge. This is a 20 gauge floral stem. You could use an even heavier one if you like. I'm going to flip this guy over, and about, a quarter of the way down, I'm going to take my scissors and make 2 teeny tiny snips that are about 1.5 inches apart. And I'm going to run that floral stem right through there. And I'm going to give it a teeny single twist here, just to keep that guy from sliding around. And then what we're going to do, let me set that off to the side. We're going to run that right through our mesh, right through our pine base. And then on the back side, this is what we call the spine. We're going to wrap those floral wires right around the spine of our base. So make sure those floral wires are on either side as you poke them through. And what I like to do is just pull it fairly tight, but not totally tight. Give it a single twist, and then I like to flip it over and make sure that that guy did not shift or move, and it's still where I like it. So I'll come back to this side. I'm going to give my floral wire stem several tight twists. And then I'm going to use my wire snips and just trim off that excess bit of floral wire. And then I'm going to take my needle nose pliers, pinch those ends together, and kind of just curl them back into the wreath. And I do that to make sure that we don't get poked by those when we pick it up, nor will it scratch our door. And so now our pumpkin is nice and secure in our base. If you have a foam pumpkin, just go ahead and use a ton of hot glue on the back of that foam pumpkin and press it down and give it a couple of minutes to dry. Let's go ahead and make a bow. This swag, friends, is going to have a farmhouse vibe. And so I'm going to use a 2.5 inch wired black and white buffalo check ribbon. And so I've got my 2.5 inch wired ribbon. It doesn't matter what ribbon you use, friends. Keep in mind, this is just a recipe, so tweak it as you would like. I just always recommend that your ribbon have wire so that it will maintain its shape for you. I also grabbed a couple of coordinating colored pipe cleaners. I'm going to keep my tails about 12 inches in length. And so I'm measuring that out to the 12-inch mark. I'm just going to pinch and gather that ribbon. And then I'm going to give it a nice solid twist. We always want the pretty side to be out on our bows. I've got a 5.5 inch loop here, and so I've made my first loop. I'm going to twist that back side right where my fingers are pinched and make another loop. And pinch that under my fingers again. I'll hold them up together to make sure they're the same length. As you can see, they are not. So I'm going to make that just a tad longer. And then I'm going to measure out my tail to be approximately 12 inches. And I'll cut that guy off. So this is just a very simple bow, friends. 2 loops, 2 tails. I'm going to take my pipe cleaner, fold it into a V, wrap that right around my bow in the center, and I'm going to give that guy 2 or 3 tight twists. And then I'll pull my tails down, and I'm going to add this directly below my pumpkin, but off to the right a little bit. And I'm going to take my pipe cleaners and just wrap them around the spine of our swag base, just like what we did the pumpkin. So make sure your ties are out of the way. Take those pipe cleaners, get them right around your spine, and give them 2 or 3 tight twists. Come back over to your swag and make sure that everything is still where you want it. And if you're happy with that bow placement, friends, just come on back to the back side of your swag, trim off those excess bits of pipe cleaner, and then just take your fingers and push that little tail out of the way. So how cute is that going to be? I am feeling the farmhouse vibes already. We're not going to trim the tails yet of our bow until the very end. Let's make that exact same bow with 12-inch tails and 2 6-inch loops that we'll be adding at the top. All right, friends, I've just quickly made our next bow. You'll pull the tails going in one direction, and this time when we add it in, you want those tails pointing up. So just run your pipe cleaner around the spine. This time it will be directly above the pumpkin and to the left just a little bit, so that we've got a little bit of a diagonal flow with our bows. Perfect. So I'm just taking my hands, friends, and fluffing out those loops and just opening them up a little bit. We're going to let our tails run. So as you can see, we've got this nice diagonal flow. We are going to trim the ends of our ribbon tails, but not until the very end. So now we've anchored down our pumpkin. We've added our 2 bows, and it's time to start adding in some embellishments. Let me show you what I've grabbed. So I've got 2 ficus bushes. I've grabbed a single pumpkin stem. And then I've got a bag of the foam plastic pumpkins from Hobby Lobby. So we're going to start with the greenery. And if you're new to working with greenery, friends, greenery and florals is generally going to be the most expensive part of any wreath or swag that you make. I typically get my florals from Hobby Lobby. I just really like their quality, and they actually are on sale for 40% off nearly every other week without fail. So when it's time to start creating, make sure you keep an eye on your local Hobby Lobby flyer so that you can get a better price. And so what I'm going to do is grab my snips. I've got my small snips and my heavy duty guys. You never know how thick that wire is going to be on florals. And I'm just going to trim off my floral pieces like so. And just throw them in a little pile here. So I think I'm going to leave the two smaller pieces as they are. Those are about 11 inches tall, but they're pretty flat and thin. And then the larger piece, I'm going to keep whole as well, and we'll use the bigger pieces near the top and bottom. And so I'm going to be using 2 FICA branches here, friends, for a total of 6 pieces. So we'll have in total 4 of the smaller pieces and 2 of the larger. And if you can see this, friends, I've left my stems just about 1.5 inches long on all of them to secure them down. Now, one thing I like to do, it might be a little bit of an overkill, but sometimes florals aren't secure. And so wherever the greenery or the floral piece meets the stem, I just give it a little pull and make sure it's secure. Well, just like that. Sometimes they're not. And the last thing I want to happen is to have something come apart on my customer's door. And so when that happens, I just take a teeny tiny dollop, about half the size of a pea. I put it right on that stub where the greenery or floral came off. And then I shove that guy right back on there. Just like that. And that'll keep that from coming undone. All right, I've got my FICA branches cut and ready to go. If your FICAs are flat or if you've had them shipped and they need brought to life, you know they are on a wire stem, so just move them around as you wish. And remember, we've got 2 longer pieces and then 4 slightly smaller pieces. We're going to put the longer pieces, one at the top, one at the bottom. And let me give you a little Floral 101, friends. So when I'm building my swags, or even my wreaths for that matter, I always start, when it comes to florals, with the greenery base, and then I work my way forward. So usually the filler greenery is towards the back and sprinkled throughout, and then I bring in my brighter and bigger, more statement florals. And then lastly, I'll add in my fillers. So just a little Floral 101 for you. And I always like to dry place my florals first. And so the great thing about pine bases is that there's lots for florals to grab onto. And so once I know where I want to add my floral piece, I put a good bead of glue on that floral. And then I just shove that directly into my piece, making sure that it's anchored down to something nicely. And now we'll do the exact same thing to the top. And so again, we're going to dry place that first and make sure we're happy with the placement. That's great. Run 1.5 inches or so bead of glue. You really want that guy nice and stuck down in there. And then just shove it on down in. Separate your branches the way you wish and move on to the next piece. And so I've got 4 of these slightly smaller pieces. I'm going to add 2 on each side. You guys, how cute is this piece coming together? We've got our greenery anchored in. Once it's had a few minutes to dry and we've added our other pieces in, I'll come back in and just separate those stems a little bit, make sure they're laying where I want, but we want to give that good time to dry. All right, let's move on to the next embellishment. I've grabbed this single stem of pumpkins from Hobby Lobby. Honestly, I wish I would have grabbed two, so I could have put a whole stem at the top and a whole stem at the bottom, but I didn't. So we're going to make do here. And I'm going to split my stem right in half. And so remember, we like to have a few inches for anchoring. And so I'm going to split this guy in half with my heavy duty snips and just split this stem right in half. So we've got this stem, and then we've got our secondary stem. So I'm going to come down a few inches and trim that guy as well. And just like the florals, friends, I'm going to pull on our pumpkins here and just make sure that they're secure. And once they are, I'll just spread them out, make sure they're kind of fluffed out like I like them. The great thing about florals is that they're nearly always on a wired stem or spine, so you can bend them and tweak them as you wish. So I'm thinking with these pumpkins, friends, I'm going to add one towards the bottom and one towards the top. So I'm going to dry place them and then we'll glue them in. So I've added my pumpkins basically so it looks like they're flowing directly out of my bow, friends. And again, we've still not fluffed our bows. That's the very last step. But I do think it's okay to go ahead and trim our ribbon tails. Now I'm going to dovetail mine, friends, and I don't like my tails to stick out too much farther than my swag or my wreath base. I'm going to dovetail my ends, and so this tail is longer. I'm going to just fold it in half. And to make the dovetail, friends, you're going to cut on the folded side. You'll come down about 1 inch to 1.5 inches and then cut diagonally to your corner, just like so, and that gives you that pretty dovetail. And I always recommend cutting less than you think you need. You can always take more off, but you sure can't put it back on. So we'll come back through and trim those at the end if we feel we need to. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing to my upper tails. You guys, this is coming together so stinking cute. Now we need to take a minute before we add any more embellishments in. Grab your small snips or scissors, and we need to give our swag a haircut. So basically, any of these ties, these pine ties here that are sticking way out, I want you to go ahead and just trim those guys off. Like so, because they are not the focal point. We use those to anchor our creation down, but we don't want them to steal the limelight. So just give your base here a little haircut. Just kind of laying those ribbon tails slightly behind my pumpkin stem. I've also got this bouquet, also from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to pull some, not all of those florals out to add into our swag. So this little bouquet, friends, that I grabbed from Hobby Lobby has all different kinds of textures and colors. So I'm just going to kind of dry place some florals in here, and then we'll glue them down. All right, guys, I'm going to add a couple of our foam pumpkins in before we wrap up our florals here, just to make sure that I'm happy with our flow. And a little trick for you, save your heavier duty floral wire stems so that when you have a foam pumpkin, you've got an extra anchor to get that guy secure. So I just poke that right into that foam, and then I pull it out. I add a pea-sized amount of glue there and push that wire right back in there. And then I'll take my snips and trim off the wire. In this case, I'm going to leave a couple of inches of stem. And that basically lets you make a pick to get that added extra security for your embellishment additions. So I'm going to run a bit of glue, a couple of squeezes here right on the pumpkin, and then also on our pick that we've just added in. And then I'm going to secure that guy right down into our base. And that's just going to give it all kinds of extra strength and hold. Let's add a few more of the white florals in. And this beauty is finished. How stinking cute. This is probably at this point, gosh, every bit of 36 inches long and 18 inches wide. What a statement piece. Thank you for spending time creating with me today. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps my little channel to grow. And I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Thanks, friends. Happy crafting.